Hey guys, welcome to Mr. Smith's Kitchen. Brian, Mr. Smith, Kitchen, as always. Today is Thursday and I thought we would do a cheesecake. Why not? Sounds good. And we're actually going to try to do it all in one day instead of the whole sit it overnight thing. Is this early enough in the morning? We should be able to have this ready by evening. We'll see. But it's going to be a great cheesecake. My friend Rob sent this to me as a suggestion, and I never did get the full name of the website, but it's omgchocolatesomething.com. She's got a wonderful little website. Got a lot of good stuff on it. Get a chance to check it out. I think she even has a YouTube channel. I'm not real sure. I didn't dig that far into her site to find out, but I know she's got videos on her site. So that being said, it's a pecan pie cheesecake. This was more of a holiday thing for her, but I like cheesecake and I like pecan pie, so for me, it's good any time of the year. And I think that's pretty awesome. Now, the cheesecake's pretty straightforward. None of the parts are hard, but there are 4 parts to this cheesecake. One is the crust, which is a vanilla wafer crust. I think that's going to be awesome. We don't have to bake it, though. We just have to stick it in the fridge. The second layer is pecan pie filling. The third layer is cheesecake. And then it's topped with a topping that's almost like another pecan pie. So I can't wait to try it. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Glad you came. I hope you get something out of this video. Check out some of my other videos. Possibly hit the subscribe button down below. If you're returning, thank you. I'm glad you're getting something out of my channel and that you enjoy our neighborhood. We try to promote happiness in a healthy neighborhood, trying to be a good neighbor. And at least for a little while, it's a safe place to be. I'll never bash anybody here or speak ill. Those are thoughts and opinions that are saved for another day. And all that good jazz. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Those are great. Either way, they let me know you like the video or dislike the video, or you're just being a troll. But either way it goes, much like subscribing, it helps get us out there in YouTube's algorithm and grows our channel substantially, which is awesome. The comments, always welcome to try to respond to them in some way, form, or fashion, whether it just be a heart or a comment to your comment, which I prefer that one, but you never know. Today could be the day that this video just blows up and I get a bazillion comments, a bazillion views, and I may not be able to get to everyone, but I do read everything that comes through all the same, minimum, and I try to recognize that in some form or fashion. So that being said, just so we can get this video moving along and get this pie made, this cake made, let's get down to the counter so we can start making stuff. All right? Hold on for me 1 second. Okay, we're down here to the counter. Let's talk about some things we'll need just to start off with. I always recommend a scale in any form or fashion. They're not expensive, and they come in really handy for baking. Every baking video I have, I pretty much recommend a scale. Some things you definitely need it for. Most things you'll definitely need it for. If you want to be accurate, precise, and have a good quality product, thing that you're making for your family or loved ones or your neighbors. The other thing we're going to need, 9-inch springform pan. Springform pans come apart like this, and man, I hate to say this, but in some cases you get what you pay for. This is a non-leak pan. I'll show you why. Alright, so see how it's got that rim right there where my thumb is? It wraps around it. We spring it, pull the lever, make it tight, and it's sealed. We don't have to fuss with it. Now, they do, everything leaks after time, but so far I've had this pan for a year and change now, and I've never once had a leak on it. The only thing that's ever come out of it's melted butter from most crusts. So, that being said, set that aside. 9-inch springform pan. It's about almost 3 inches deep. First thing we're going to need to make the crust, because that's the first thing we got to do is make the crust. We're going to make the crust, then we'll make the pecan pie filling, then we'll make the cheesecake filling, And then after we bake all that, the very last thing we'll do is make the topping for it. But right here I have some crushed vanilla wafers, okay? Or you might know them by the Nabisco, the name brand. It makes a Nella wafer. We need that. And that is 105 grams worth of crushed Nella wafers. If you're weighing it out, you want to, or if you're measuring it, you want to, without using a scale, you're going to want to crush them first. To that, I am going to add a quarter cup or 53 grams of light brown sugar. Put that in there, mix that up, break that up so it's real good. Now that is packed light brown sugar, which means I press down on it to make sure there's no air gaps in the brown sugar while it's in the measuring cup. But if you have a scale, 53 grams. The last thing we need to add to this is 1/3 cup of melted unsalted butter, okay? And we're just going to pour this in here, just like such. And then I'm going to grab a glove real quick so I can mix that with my hand. One thing you can do this in a food processor. As far as getting your wafers crushed up, definitely you can use a food processor. You could use a Ziploc baggie to do these with a mallet or some form, a rolling pin, whatever. And then in this case, I just literally use this bowl in my pestle. So that way, or my mortar. That way I didn't have to dirty up a bunch of dishes. But we're just going to mix this together really well. Just like such. And you want to make sure everything gets coated and covered. Yeah, that way when the butter hardens, plus it hits all of it, but it becomes one. Now, normally we bake our cream cheese crust, but today we're not. Today we're just going to simply put this in the pan and then stick it in the fridge while we make the next topping. So we got that mixed up good. There are some bigger chunks in there, but that's okay. And as it sits, those bigger chunks are, if you have like little pieces that aren't coated, that's okay, because as it sits in the fridge, they'll soak up some of that butter, as we go along. Plus, we are going to cook it or bake it. So, and then we're just going to take this and tamper it in flat on the pan. All right, we got this flat in the pan, and we want to get it packed down as much and as even as possible. But there is that. Just like that. Easy peasy. So, there we are. Now we just got to stick this in the fridge, and we can move on to making the pecan pie layer that we're going to pour on top of this. Alright, let me get this in the fridge and I'll be right back. Okay, let's move on to the next step. The pecan pie filling. So, really straightforward. You'll need a saucepan. A heavy bottom saucepan. Comes in real handy. Especially for baking, cooking. And the reason for that is heavy bottoms give you more heat. They have a tendency to not quite burn. They're a little more forgiving. And they're usually recommended in baking. Alright, so the first thing we need to add to this pan is, again, 1/3 cup of butter. Oop. Just like such, and we're going to let that melt down. Okay, I got our butter melted, and it's just melted. It's not bubbling, nothing, it's just melted. And there's a reason for that. To that, we're going to add 200 grams, 1 cup of just plain old sugar, granulated sugar, and we're going to add 73 grams, 2/3 of a cup of brown sugar to that. You can use dark brown sugar, light brown sugar, whatever your heart desires. I think the original recipe called for dark brown sugar. I'm more of a light brown sugar guy when I can use it. I think dark brown has a tendency to be oversweet, and this already has enough sweet in it. Even my pecan pies that I make don't have that. We're going to give that a good mix in. We're going to add 2 large 100 grams worth of egg to this mix. And we're going to add 1 teaspoon, 4 grams of vanilla. Now we're going to stir this together, and we're going to continue to stir. We want to stir pretty regular on this, that way our eggs don't cook, so to speak, but until it thickens up. So we're gonna bring it to a boil, right? Once it starts boiling, we're gonna let this simmer while stirring for about 5 minutes. So 5 to 7 minutes. We want it to get thick, nice and thick. Once we get all that mixed up, last ingredient to put in, very last ingredient, 1.5 cups of chopped pecans, which is 150 grams. We're going to throw that in. Now we'll just let this come to a boil and then simmer for 5 minutes, and then we can move on. So, we got our excuse me. Got our sauce together and thickened up. There we are right there. It looks delicious. Now, in this recipe, I was reading the comments, and a good portion of people, well, not a good portion, but a portion of people were struggling with getting this to, they kept saying that it turned out hard after they got done with the cake. And one of the solutions was to watch how much time it spends on the stovetop. The directions read 5 to 7 minutes on the stovetop. Lean more towards 5. I did, and this is plenty thick. Remember, it's also going to go in the oven for an hour with the cheesecake. So I leaned more towards 5 minutes. That's where we are. It's got a nice thickness to it. Now, it's not going to be like custard thick, because it's like pecan pie thick when you make pecan pie, which I have a video on, so you should check that out. There's a shameless plug for one of my videos. So we just got to pour this on top of the pie crust that we had in the fridge, just like such. Just like that. Set that to the side. And sorry, I guess you can't really see what I'm doing there. We'll bring you down so you can see. There we are. Alright, so now we've got our vanilla wafer layer. For our crust, we've got our pecan pie layer right there. Now I'm just going to set this to the side, get things straightened up, and we'll move on to the cheesecake filling. And, oh, before I forget, because I know I'll forget, right now is when you want to put your oven on 350 degrees and get it warming up. So that way we can do a couple nifty things with our oven when we get it done. This is not a water bath. This isn't a water bath cheesecake either. It's just a regular plain old cheesecake. Alright, well, let me get this to the side. Get things a little better organized here so we can move on to the third step before we put it in the oven. Alright, I'll be right back. Alright, we got everything a little more organized at any rate. So to make the cream cheese filling part, I'm going to use my stand mixer. You can use your hand mixer. If you have an immersion blender with paddles, or a mixing paddle, you don't want to use the flat one. I don't know how well that would work. You could probably use that too, or you could probably just do this by hand if you have the arm strength. So the first thing we're going to do is, in our bowl, we're going to take 3 blocks of cream cheese, 24 ounces. It's 8 ounces a block. And if you buy it in bulk, it's 24 ounces of cream cheese. And we're going to put this in our mixer, and we're going to cream this. Alright, we got our cream cheese creamed. Not a big deal. We'll scrape down the sides of our bowl. Now, when it comes to cheesecakes, this is probably the most important thing, and it's not scraping down your bowl. I mean, that's important too. It's the temperature of your cream cheese. If you're going to make a cheesecake, it's not cheesecakes aren't hard. They're not an all-day process. Nobody should ever be scared of them. I'm more scared of my blender or my mixer than I am to make a cheesecake. It's the temperature of your cream cheese. That is probably the most important thing. Best results, room temperature. Now, like, I knew I was going to make this when I got up at 4 o'clock this morning. So I got my cream cheese out. I got my eggs out. I got my heavy cream out. I started to get all my refrigerated ingredients together. That's what makes it it helps to make it creamy. You don't get those, you don't get lumps in your cream cheese when that happens. I mean, not that you're not going to mix a bunch, but it's not like butter when we're making most cakes where if it's not quite room temperature, that's okay. You can get away with it because, the butter warms up. Cream cheese isn't quite like that. It's close, but it's not quite like that. All right, to this, we are going to add some sugar. We are going to add 1 1/4 cups, 266 grams of packed light brown sugar. And once again, packed is important. Very rarely have I ever seen a recipe in the baking world that calls for brown sugar that's not packed. So we're going to take our butter and our sugar and our cream cheese, and we're gonna got one more ingredient to add. 2 tablespoons, 20 grams of flour. We're just gonna throw this in. Now, I will say this just from experience. It didn't suggest it, so I'm not gonna do it because I want to see how it turns out making it like the recipe says. I sift my brown sugar in. That way it incorporates easier. And I don't put it in at the same time as my brown sugar and cream. But that's okay. I'm sure it'll turn out just fine. But I find that interesting. There's not, for as much uniformity as there is in ingredients for cheesecakes, there's not on how you do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this run on medium high on my stand mixer for about medium. We don't want to take it above 4 because we don't want to make it fluffy. Cheesecakes are dense. But I'm going to let this run on 4 for about 3 to 4 minutes. All right. So we've been about 3 or 4 minutes. Next thing we're going to do is mute my laptop. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon, 4 grams of vanilla. And then I'm going to add 4 large eggs, 50 grams each, 200 grams total. And I'm going to add them in one at a time until I can no longer see the yolk, until they're incorporated. Alright, we're putting the last egg in, get that incorporated real quick. Alright, good and incorporated. That's what we're looking for. So now I'm just going to real quick give this a good scrape. You can never scrape your bowl too much. You want to ensure that everything is getting mixed well inside your bowl. So that's important. Like right there was a nice lump of cream cheese that didn't get incorporated. And what's worse is I've probably mixed this with my spatula and scraped the sides a dozen times and I still missed it. So it just goes to show, I mean, it's important that you should scrape down things in order to make sure you're nice and smooth. Once again, our end game with any cheesecake is to have a nice, smooth filling. One that's beautiful and silky and makes everybody smile when they take that bite. That's the important thing. Alright, so the last thing we got to incorporate into this is 2/3 a cup. I think it's 77 milliliters of heavy whipping cream. So go ahead and get the paddle back on there. Just like that. Mix her down. Put it on stir. Because we're just going to want to incorporate our heavy cream. We're not looking to, we don't want to add air. When making cream cheese, unless you want a fluffy, airier cream cheese, you never want to mix above medium. We are incorporated. Looking good. Grab our spatula get everything real quick off of this beater. Now I've learned the difference between a whisk beater, the whisk attachment, and the paddle attachment. When it comes to cakes and things like that, the whisk attachment is good if it's something you want a lot of air in, like cakes. Sometimes you want air in that cake, to give it lift and things like that, or meringues or whipped toppings. Where a paddle attachment like this one helps with creaminess, getting things creamy. All right, so get that off the stand mixer there. Give a good look around in the glass bowl. That's what we do. Make sure we got everything together. We're going to move the mixer out of the way because we are done with it. Finished. Don't need it anymore at the moment. Give this a good once around. Make sure we don't have any lumps. Now, let's say you find some lumps, clumps, or bumps. That's okay. You can simply just put it back on the mixer and let it run for a minute longer. Yeah, like I said, you just don't want to mix it high. So the last step we got to do is grab our pan, and look, that firmed up. I mean, it's not, you know, not movable, but it's firmed up quite a bit. It's thickened up nicely. So the next thing we want to do is just take our batter and pour it into, sure that wasn't a lump and it was just an air bubble. Pour it on top. And I'm pretty sure I mentioned it, but we are using a 9-inch springform pan. Yeah. I don't, and if you ask, I'll tell you, you have to use a springform pan when making cheesecakes. Now, I'm sure you might be able to get away with using a regular cake pan, but I don't think so, because you have to be able to get it out of the pan. Unless your end game is to not get it out of the pan. But, all the same, I think we would want to use a springform pan. Alright, so we are good there. Give it a little shake. Now, I did say earlier that we're not going to water bath this. We are going to dry bake it, which is okay. I mean, that's a thing too. You don't necessarily, I'm learning, you don't necessarily have to water bath cheesecakes, although it does help. I'm sure there are some cases where you have to. I am not a cheesecake entrepreneur. Like I said a million times, I'm not a professional baker. I'm just a guy that likes to bake and cook. So we're going to take this, we're going to set it on the middle of the pan. Just like that. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to my oven. And I know I told you to set it for 350, but now I'm going to turn it down to 325. And it's going to tell me it's ready to go. So what do we do next? Excuse me. We're going to bake this bad boy. And we're going to bake it for about an hour at 325 degrees. Alright, we just turned our oven down. Now we're going to bake it for about an hour, 60 to 70 minutes. You're looking for a couple things. You should be able to put a toothpick through the center of it, and it should come out mostly clean. Shouldn't be liquidy. You should be able to grab it and jiggle it, and it should have very little jiggle to it. Alright, we want some jiggle. That's the nature of cheesecakes, but not a whole lot. Firm on the edges, a little jiggly in the center, potentially even a little wet. These are all things to look for. Or I know just from experience and research, we want our cheesecake to be about 185 degrees. If it's 185 degrees in the center, if you've got a thermometer, a little bit of jiggle on the top, or your toothpick comes out mostly clean, you know, and not just like sheer liquid, you're good. But then you just want to take it out. So I'm going to go ahead and start this on an hour, and we'll take it from there. So when I come back, we'll take a look at what we got and talk about what to do next. See you here in just 1 minute. Okay, so the timer just went off, and I checked it, and it's a little jiggly in the center. Yeah, firm on the edges, just like we've looked at a dozen times with cheesecakes. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to turn my oven off. I'm just going to let it sit in there for about 45 minutes. I'm not going to open up the door or anything. Just going to let it sit there. That way, it'll cool down on its own time with the oven. The key to cheesecakes, to help not make them crack, sometimes they just crack, and that's just a fact of life. It's okay with this one if it does, though, because we're about to cover it with a topping here in a little bit. So I'm going to let that sit in there for 45 minutes. And then I'm going to take it out and I'm going to set it on a rack. A cooling rack. Just like a cookie rack like we have a dozen times. I'll set it on the cooling rack and I'm going to let it sit there for about an hour or so and get down to room temperature. And then this would be the part where I tell you to put plastic wrap on it and stick it in the fridge overnight. Now, since it's so early in the morning, it's only 10 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock in the morning. We've got time. So I'm going to let it sit in there for an hour. I'll let it sit out here for an hour. And then I'll check it in about 7 hours, 6, 7 hours. So about 8 o'clock tonight. And it should be firmed up by then, I have no doubt. I've done enough cheesecakes to know now that at least all the ones I've done prior to this are usually pretty firm in about 6, 7 hours in the fridge, at least in this fridge. This fridge is ice cold. So that's good. So I'm going to do those next 3 steps, cool in here for 45 minutes, set out here for about an hour at room temperature, and then stick it in the fridge for about 6 to 8 hours. And then when I come back, which will be this evening, we'll make the topping for it and top it off and try it. All right, I'll see you here in just a second. All right, guys, cheesecake's cooled. We're ready to go there. Now we gotta just make the topping. So I'm gonna get you down here where we can all see things. First thing we got is 3½ tablespoons of melted butter, 32 grams. And with that, we're gonna put in, excuse me, some brown sugar at 54 grams, a ½ cup, and 1 teaspoon of cinnamon at, it's like a gram, barely a gram. So if it doesn't register, it's okay. Just level off your teaspoon. Now we're going to take these and we're going to basically melt the sugar down and make a sauce. Alright, so let me get this melted down and make a sauce. Alright, we are bubbly and thickened up. So we've only got 2 things left to add to it. I got a ¼ cup of heavy cream, and I'm going to pour this in as I stir, just because that seems to be the right thing to do. I don't know why, but it just seems like it does. Plus, I mean, you want to consistently stir. And then I've got, that was a ½ cup of heavy, or ¼ cup of heavy cream. I've got 1 cup of toasted pecans that I am going to take, and that's 100 grams, sorry. And I'm going to put those in there. Give that all a good stir. Make sure I didn't miss anything. Yep, got it. All right. Now, all we got left to do before we pour this on and eat is let this cool for a minute. So we wanted it to cool down to room temperature, basically, so we don't melt the cheesecake. So I'm going to set this off to the side. We're going to let that cool down, and when I come back, we'll take a look at the cake before we put the topping on it, and try a slice. All right, I'll be back in just one moment. So our topping is cool enough. I think we can get away with putting it on there. Here's our cheesecake, and even though we did our best attempt of not having it crack, it cracks anyhow. But that's okay, because watch, I'm about to make this crack disappear. It's going to be amazing. You guys are going to be like, wow, he's a magician. I'm going to put our topping on top of here, just like such. Alright. And look at that. No more crack. It's kind of like the old Johnson & Johnson's No More Tears commercial. No more tears. No more crack. Let's get our pecans straightened out here. I'm going to have it drizzle over the edge a little bit. That's okay. That's okay. I'm not sweating it at all. Now, if we want, I mean, I'm going to, this will go back in the fridge, but not until we have a piece. I have been waiting all day to try this bad boy. You know, it has been a long day. I went out and scraped the paint on the garage, getting it ready to prep for paint. Was told it needed to be done before we close on the house, and that could be here in the next week, I think. I hope. Right, nothing goes wrong. This is the most I've talked about it. You guys got to hear it here first. All right. But that's all right. There, friends, is our pecan cake. Cheesecake. Pecan pie cheesecake. This would be what it's called. I think it looks delish. Yeah, yes, the side got a little beat up there. I don't know why. That's okay. But all the same. So, hold on for me 1 second. I'm going to go get a plate and a knife because I was not prepared to do this. And then we'll cut a piece. All right, hold on for me 1 second.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Sorry about that. I also got told I needed to hurry up because young Abby would like a piece. You guys met her yesterday, I believe. The noise in the background happens to be the news. Unfortunately today, Queen Elizabeth, Queen of England, who has been so the last 70 years, passed away. And I think it's really kind of sad. This looks so rich and unhealthy. 80% of the citizens in England have lived their entire life with her being queen. Is that not crazy? That's absolute craziness. So let's go ahead and see if we can't fish this out. Oh, look at that. That is gorgeous. Yes. Look at that. Beautiful. Beautiful. And the cut was clean other than the part where my knife doesn't have a tip on it anymore. Look at that. Oh, that's just, I don't even know how to describe it. So, let's get you up here where I can see your smiling face. Oh, there you are. God, I miss seeing you. I mean, it's, even though we're here together talking all the time, it's like I never actually get to see you. You guys get to stare at my countertop. I get to stare at the countertop also. Yeah, and I don't know if it's altogether fair. Alright. Well, this looks amazing. It smelled good while it was baking in the oven. So, let's see how we did. I can tell you that that crust is great. On. If you like pecan pie and cheesecake, this is the way to go. This is OMG chocolate. Props. That is awesome. I mean, that has got everything you could ask for and more in the realm of pecan pie with the creaminess of cheesecake. Holy cow. Alright, so I can't even describe how immensely good that is. All I can say is either come on over to the house, all 186 of you, or how many ever watch this video, come on over. I live in Newark, Ohio, and join me for a piece of this cake because it is the bomb. Hands down, the bomb. This has put the biggest smile on my face I've had all day. You know, that's great. So, try this. Please, try this. If you have questions along the way, message me on Messenger. Get a hold of me through Facebook. I'll help you. You need to try this. I've never been so excited about a cheesecake in my life. And we've made a lot of cheesecakes together. But, man, that combination of pecan pie, derivative, and cheesecake, oh, amazing. Thank you, Rob, for sharing this recipe with me. Let me know if you try this. Let me know what you think. Think it was great, like I do, because I'm telling you, I don't think you'll be disappointed one iota. Or if you didn't like it, or if you make something similar, let me know. Leave me a message down in the comments. Yeah. So, this Saturday, I'm going to teach you guys how to make some rotel and a rotel type tomato and pepper in a jar. It's a rotel copycat. And show you how to process it, can it, and all that stuff if you're interested. Basically, it's just a series on what to do with your garden vegetables when you get, just tons of them in at once. We got 80 pounds of tomatoes in at once. There's no way we could eat that much even if we tried. So, that'll be this Saturday. As far as next week goes, no clue. You know, but I'm sure we'll figure something out. Hopefully somebody will give me a great dinner idea or an amazing dessert recipe. I got a couple dessert recipes I got in the back of my head, but if you've got one, let me know. I'll do my best to try to make it, dinner or dessert. So that being said, till next week, I love you. I love you very much. I mean that from the bottom of my heart with all sincerity. Tell somebody else you love them and that you love them very much. It's going to make their day a whole lot better. You make this pecan pie cheesecake, I guarantee they'll feel the amount of love you have for them. You can't go wrong with this. You want to ask somebody out on a date, make this pie and give them a piece. Or this cake and give them a piece. They'll be like, oh my God, let's just get the date and get married because you are amazing in the kitchen. So, next week, or actually this Saturday for peppers and tomatoes or a copycat Ratel. I'll see you then. All right, I love you. I'll talk to you later. Bye.